Your next session is coming up in a few days. Are you one of those DMs that started prepping for this session minutes after the last session ended? Do you not prep at all and just wing it? Or do you spend just a few hours a day or two before the session getting it ready? There are many ways to prepare for a session, and there's no right way for everyone. My name is Rich. I'm a first-time DM. Welcome to DM Tips. Let's get started talking about how much session prep you should do. There are basically three ways to prep. The first is when everything, and I mean everything, is prepped before the session, leaving nothing out and leaving no wiggle room for creativity on the fly. There are some benefits to this type of preparation. All cities in the entire region, maybe the world, are fully fleshed out with all shops, NPCs, and plot hooks standing by. Every possible combat encounter is ready, and all maps for the planned encounters are created. One downside to this type of prep is it is very hard when the players do the unexpected, which they tend to do. These DMs tend to get upset or rattled when they are not prepared for something the players choose or do. Their world is amazing, but there is minimal room for flexibility, and they may have to stop the session so they can fully prepare what the players decided to do, and that decision will be explored in the next session. Don't get me wrong, there is nothing wrong with this type of prep if it works for you and your table. There's a benefit to being over-prepared, but if that prep causes you as a DM to be locked in only on what you had ready, that is not beneficial to how D&D is actually played and will lead to railroading your players, which is the number one thing to avoid as a DM. The second type is doing no prep at all, where nothing is ready and the DM must make up everything on the fly. The benefits to this type of prep are that you are at zero risk of railroading your players, and nothing the players do or choose will cause you any stress. The DM that says this is their kind of prep are usually very experienced DM with years behind the screen, along with years in front of the screen as a player. They know all the ins and outs of this game and usually have played as many different classes. Now for the part that I'm sure will get me some nasty comments. A truly non-prepped, fully improv game is usually not very good. These games tend to take longer as the DM is spending a lot of time gathering minis, finding and scaling stat blocks for enemies, determining treasure, plus their lore and more likely not their world are full of contradictions and are constantly being changed because the DM is winging it and doesn't remember what they said weeks, months, or years ago. There can be exceptions, but if you look closer at a fully improv game, if it is actually a good game, chances are it was minimally prepped and not totally improv. They probably had a couple of encounters ready so they can pull out and place into any session, along with a set of NPCs and stores with item lists. They may not have prepped days or even weeks before the session. The prep may have come months ago instead. The third type is a combination of the previous two, prepping just enough to have key things covered, but leaving room to adjust if needed. It has the benefits of both the previous types of prep while minimizing the downsides of each. I fall into the third category. My prep is a combination of total prep while leaving wiggle room for improv. I lean towards the first type of prep. With the way my mind works, I love having things planned out as much as possible in terms of the world itself. However, I realize there is no way I can know what the players may do, so I can't cover everything. Plus, making some stuff up on the fly is part of the fun of being a DM and allows me to embrace the chaos that can be D&D. I tend to have combats fully prepped, while exploration and social encounters are usually left to be improv. There is no real right or wrong way to prep, provided it works for you and your table. So, what I can do is describe how I prep for a session. My way may not work for you, just as your way may not work for me. I find myself spending at least 1 hour prepping for each hour I expect the session to be. We normally play 4-hour sessions, so the Saturday or Sunday before the session, our sessions are on Thursdays, I will spend about 4 hours prepping for the session. I have 2 binders I use. One has the printout and information needed for the current session, and the other is my world binder. which has all the city information, previous sessions and encounters, and any other lore. It's all tabbed out, of course. The binder for my current session is kept behind my screen during the session, and my world binder is close at hand in case I need the name of a tavern in the city coming up. I am in a process of moving this all to World Anvil, but there are only so many hours in a day. My prep time involves writing up a recap of the last session, hitting the high points and some low points of the previous session, as well as updating the in-world calendar I created, which tracks the day of the week, the month, other key things that happen to the players. I also track their long and short rests, as well as any level ups. I use milestone leveling, all in that same calendar. I will also create any encounters I may need for an incoming session, whether they be combat, exploration, or social. Each type of encounter requires different preps, as we will discuss shortly. And just an FYI, if I have time, I will prep for future sessions as well. This allows me to pull an encounter and use it anywhere where it makes sense. Some of my encounters are specific to cities, areas, or quests, while others work great as random encounters. In my current campaign, all creatures need to be scaled up due to the power level of the party. So adjusting true random encounters on the fly can take too long and ruin the session. So having ready-made scaled encounters works best for me and my table. A combat encounter means gathering stat blocks as needed and usually scaling these creatures up or down and making other modifications if needed. I will also ensure all key points of the creature are highlighted. Special abilities, damage resistances and immunities, and saving throws. I have missed or misread many of these in the past, so having them highlighted helps to speed up combat and so I don't forget that great ability again. I tend to use printed stat blocks during my game, as I find it easier than having a bunch of tabs open on my iPad. Plus, I can take notes directly on the printouts. I will gather all needed minis or stand-ins as I don't have all the minis. Speaking of which, if anyone from WizKids wants to send me any minis to test, just reach out. I will look through my collection of printed maps for any that will work for the encounters. I will create my own if needed using Dungeon Alchemist software. Or I will come up with a plan to draw it out on graded paper a couple hours before the session. Also, I have to consider if there are any social or exploration encounters that may be needed before, during, or after the combat. If so, I do the prep for those as well. A social encounter means having all NPCs' basic information such as age, gender, race, and general personality written down. I may come up with DCs to hide information behind, or set the DCs for when the players make insight, persuasion, or deception rolls. Some of my NPCs may be fully statted NPCs, and for those, I will have their stat plots printed out and highlighted. If the social encounter is designed to provide information to the party, I will have the information listed in an outline and any possible DCs needed to obtain the information. If the social encounter is a store or one that provides a service, I will have a list of items or at a minimum a rolling table of items along with prices already set. I don't come up with every store in a town initially, but the ones I know the players generally visit, like taverns, blacksmiths, general stores, and magic shops, I will have at a basic level ready for the players. I don't have all the social encounter dialogue written down. Instead, I have the key points outlined, and during the interaction, I will refer to this outline when answering players' questions or while doing a lore dump. Also, if I think the social encounter may end up in combat, I ensure I have any stats, minis, and maps needed just in case. Social encounters are the easiest I find to improv. When I create shops in a city, I create just these ahead of time. An inner tavern, a blacksmith, a general store, and a magic shop if there is one. Any other shops and NPCs the players choose to go to will end up being totally improv. An exploration encounter may require a map and or DCs for what they are looking for. I find most exploration encounters can be done using theater of the mind, but if it is a more intricate encounter, a map may be of help. Are the players traveling through the woods without a path? What would the DC for a survival check be to stay on the right path? Is there a cave hidden in the mountains they need to find? What survival or investigation DCs should I use? Do any social or combat encounters happen during this exploration encounter? I might create 2 rolling tables to use during the exploration. One for social encounters such as travelers they meet on the road, and one for random combat encounters such as a nest of gricks they stumble across, as well as doing the work for those encounters too. How much you should prep is highly dependent on the type of person and DM you are. In time, you may find you need less prepared in terms of exploration encounters, but you need to spend more time creating social encounters. You may find that you seem to have a knack for combat encounters, so you spend less time on those. Or you may find that, like me, I need some of everything written down and ready to go. It helps me keep focused during the session, especially as the combats get more complicated and the social encounters more intriguing as the campaign progresses. The key is finding what works for you as well as what works for your game. If your players are constantly bored waiting for you to find a stat block or while you figure out an NPC's name and the lore he was supposed to give the party, you probably need to spend more time prepping before each session. Do not listen to the people that say, why bother prepping because the players won't do anything, you prep for them anyways. While yes, the players do this all the time, I firmly believe the better prepped you are, the more ready you are to handle when the players go left when you thought they'd go right. And it will look like you were ready for them to do that the whole time. I had a player just a few weeks ago in my mid-campaign survey say that she wished I improv more. Little did she realize that 95% of the session the night before she answered that survey was improv. All because I know how my world and the people in it act and react. Even if I didn't have anything written down, it seemed to her and the rest of the party that I had it all planned out. I was able to create encounters on the fly, making sure I documented names and key points from the encounter for future reference. As a new DM, chances are, if you try to do the no prep, fully improv style of preparation, the game will suffer, and there's a good bet you may lose players, especially if after a few sessions, you've barely gotten through one combat and the players have barely moved in the world, or the encounters you did come up with were boring and run-of-the-mill. In my opinion, you should always prep to some degree, especially if you are a new DM, at least 1 hour's worth. Prepping helps you understand your world better. Prepping allows you to tie one event to another, one place to another, and one person to another. The more prep work you do, the more real the world becomes to the players. Have an encounter or two ready based upon what the players said they were going to do in the last session. And having the basics for a town or village near where the players are or will be, such as a few shops and NPCs, are needed for every session. Think about how those encounters tie into the rest of the story you are telling. There should always be a reason behind an encounter, no matter what type it is. Without purpose, the players are just moving from point A to point B. Purpose is why they are going from point A to point B and what they hope to accomplish on the way. Before you know it, the world will be real. And even if the players do something unexpected, you will be ready to roll with the punches, and they will never know you made it up all on the spot. The more time behind the screen you have, the less prep time you may need over time. Thanks, as always, to @KMarie. She's the artist behind the logos you see here on my merch site and my Facebook page. If you want to give me further support, consider buying something from my merch site. There are many great items there, such as shirts, hats, cups, and stickers. Also, follow my Facebook page. I give daily DM tips as well as other updates such as what happened in my campaign that week. Links to both the merch site and my Facebook page can be found in the description. And finally, please share this video and my links with other DMs you may know. Keep commenting about what topics you would like to see covered in a future video. And please leave a comment about how much you prep for each session. and if the amount has changed over time. Finally, I plan on doing some D&D player tips videos in the future. So, if you have any suggestions for those, please leave them in the comments too. Remember to like, subscribe, and ring that bell to be notified when a new video from me drops. Thanks for watching. Now let's roll some dice.